All right, you guys. So if you've been paying attention to the news in the last couple of days, basically, you'll know that Gina Carano was axed by Disney Plus from not just The Mandalorian, but from any kind of likeliness associated with Disney, and that includes all the properties that they're associated with, including Hasbro. And so in the past couple of days, we've basically figured that we're not going to be getting a Cara Dune in The Mandalorian Season 3. There's a chance we might not even be getting a Mandalorian Season 3. And we're not going to be getting the Cara Dune actress, Gina Carano, in her own show, which was slated to be called Rangers of the New Republic, I believe, which we definitely knew from the setup of Season 2 that that's the direction that they were going in. But sadly, we're probably not going to get most of that. And you know what? It is what it is. But really where that's affecting some of you guys directly as collectors is that regardless of how you might feel about the politics of Gina Carano, which here on TBG, I'm not saying we're not going to talk about politics, but we'll probably save that for a very specific feature. But here we're just going to focus more on the action figure itself. But that is the way that it's going to impact you because they have actually canceled all re-releases of the Cara Dune figure. So we're basically not getting any new re-releases. We're not going to be getting any kind of update with the face printing and the new style box, which you guys can see up here. What they basically had, or should I say down here, it's a completely new one. So you can see how they're different from what you'll see in the video. But again, basically, if you were trying to hope for maybe a second run or potentially a new outfit that she might get in a future either Mandalorian series or Rangers of the New Republic, we're not going to be getting that. So that's going to be affecting the prices of what's already out on the market, because basically this is going to be a very hard to get figure moving forward, meaning prices are obviously going to skyrocket. And so the main question that I want to answer for you guys here is, if you guys do see a Cara Dune out in the wild and it is at a premium, is it worth it? And then if it is worth a premium, how much of a premium? So let me go ahead and break it all down for you, and let's see if it's worth it for you to go through what will probably be a really big hassle to even get at this point. All right, so let's go ahead and get it. All right, you guys, so you know what it is. Star Wars The Black Series, number 101, Cara Dune. This is a dope fucking figure, and I know you can see it through the window of the box itself. This is really, really akin to her likeness. Now, this was done before the updated box, so obviously, as you guys know, the new box looks more like this, with a really cool photo on the side, and I'm pretty sure that we eventually would have gotten something like this, with a probably updated face, because the face sculpt that we're seeing here was actually the one that was before I believe they started printing on the faces. So this is still mostly sculpted. So again, I would have loved to have seen an updated version, but at this point it seems to be that this version right here will most likely be the last kind that we get out of this figure. So let me go ahead and give you guys the full 360. So this is the front. We do get a nice picture of everything she gets. 2 weapons, a knife, the armor herself looks great, and then a really nice photo of Gina Carano on the bottom right. They did a fantastic job on this one, even if it's not the updated box. On the side, we do get that 101 Cara Dune, and a little few of the numbers right there. Nothing too important. Now on the back side, we do get a larger version of the front face that we saw, and then of course a little bit of a bio. Let me go ahead and zoom in. And it just reads, a veteran of the Galactic Civil War who fought for the rebellion. Cara Dune is a seasoned warrior who has put her days of military discipline behind her and now has reinvented herself as a mercenary. Now, she is a fantastic character in the Mandalorian series, and especially in Season 2. They definitely do a good job of building up her likeness so that you can really invest in the character. And then on the other side, we do just get Cara Dune again and small red writing, and then in a more grayish color with the black backdrop on the side. All right, you guys, so here we have Cara Dune out of the box, and let me just say the likeliness is surprisingly uncanny. They did a wonderful job with this figure overall. I'm going to give you guys the full 360, but let me just make it clear from the jump. This was definitely a figure cut above what its price point was. As you guys remember, we did have a couple of things that came out recently from like the Marvel Legends, which is running a little bit of a more expensive premium price. but you also got better quality. I almost feel like some of that got into this. Maybe it's because The Mandalorian was doing pretty good or was slated to do good. There was more money behind the project itself to make some of these figures as good as they really come out to be, and Cara Dune is definitely one of those. So let me go ahead and give you a full 360. So here we do have the front, and the likeliness to Cara Dune's actress Gina Carano is pretty damn good, and they got it all down to the... All right, so the likeness itself came out pretty well. Let me see if I can brighten that up a little bit. Yep, okay, so pretty wonderful looking figure. I definitely enjoy just the amount of detail that we see all the way around. So let me go ahead and give you guys a little bit more of a zoom in. Okay, so as you guys can tell, they did a really good job. They still gave her the tattoo under the eye. It looks really dope. It's always made her look like a super badass. And then we do have different blues basically from top to bottom. So more of a almost navy-ish colored, kind of like that apocalypse color that we've seen before, that shiny darker metal blue. I like it. You go down, you get more of this really dark, almost tealish, sapphire-ish color, and then we do get one more shade of blue below. Now on camera it does look a little lighter than it is, but it is somewhat of a mesh color, and it does look really nice. We get a little bit more of a matte black color basically around the waist and for the belt colors, but on the belt buckle we do get a silver color that is repeated up here at the top, and even this blue right here in the middle on the rivets do look a little bit different. And then this bottom color right here is a lot like what we see at the top, but just the slightest bit brighter. It's actually coming up in the camera more noticeable than I think the actual figure looks, but if you look at the arms you'll see that it's basically the same color, so it matches more up there. And then the more armored pieces seem to all match together. You go down into the pants, same thing, you do get more of a deeper, darker blue, but it does look really nice. And then more of a grayish wash on the sides that do come down, and they split the knee on this side, but over here we actually end up with armor piece for the knee, and it's really dope, and it does have a gray outline around it, so that looks really good. Let me go ahead and adjust the camera. All right, and then down at the feet we do have, it's not picking it up as much here, but it is almost like a brown color, more like a brownish gray color at the legs, and then it's still kind of like a brown hue, but more of a almost sand tan color here for the boots. All right, so let me give you guys a side view. Now, as you know, Cara Dune is basically a dropship trooper. She's basically a commando, badass military character, and she has a wonderful neutral pose up and down. She looks definitely imposing, and as I mentioned before, she does come off as being of a higher quality. I'll explain a little bit more of that in a second, but she feels great in hand, and she looks great as a soldier piece. As you can see, let me zoom in a little bit. She does have a little bit of that blue on the right elbow. Not a big deal for me, but you know, it is there. It is something to note. And then you can see that the armor that she has around the forearms does have a little bit of that basically battle damage right here, and we see a little bit more of it up here on the shoulder piece. Let me go ahead and zoom out just a little bit, and then we do get I'm not quite understanding what this is right here, but it is still cool looking to me that she does have, you know, different pieces of equipment on her, even if they don't necessarily come off. And then I'm noticing that the reason why her feet have more of that sandy color is because I think they're supposed to be dirty. Some of this does take place in more terrain oriented places, the Mandalorian series itself, so that is kind of cool. It does give it this certain level of realism if you put her in a diorama. So Cara Dune is a large and strong female character, and she looks the part. We do see more of that mesh on the back, some of those darker colors for the armor pieces. The hair is sculpted really nicely and pretty accurate to the show, to be honest. And I like this. It looks like she's almost wearing chainmail. It's pretty dope. More of that black, the blues, the silvers, the way the pants look. You can see more of that grayish color on the outside with the darker blue on the inside, and then the brown, and again the more dirtier sand color at the bottom. And then I may not have mentioned this on the other side, but she has tattoos on her right arm, as you can see right there. But on the left arm, no tattoos. But I really like that asymmetry that we see there. And then I don't know if the other hand you could see it as well as on this one, but she does have some blue on the gauntlet piece that looks pretty dope. And again, that knife, but we'll go into that a little bit later. Some of that armor pieces on the side, and again all the way down the brown to the bottom. All right, so let's go ahead and break down the accessories. All right, so Cara Dune does come pretty fucking well equipped, and again, hardcore badass. So of course she's gonna come with it. I love a lot of the weapons from Star Wars. They have an old style look to them, while also having a futuristic kind of look to them as well. And she comes with basically a heavy machine gun, very reminiscent of some of the heavy machine guns from like World War II. You see some of that browner wood stock. It's really nice. And then I'm not quite understanding why it's, let's say, silver here but black everywhere else, but I do believe this is somewhat accurate to the show, so it is there. And then she does come with a bandolier piece, basically, as you can tell, and it connects anywhere you want because it's open right there, and you can put it where you want. But if you go ahead and look up here where she does sometimes hold on to the weapon herself, I think this piece needs to be more reinforced. It stresses really easy, and as you can tell, it's already kind of white right there. Let me just zoom in a little bit. Yeah, as you can tell, brighten it up for you. Yeah, it's already got a little bit of a stress mark, so just something to watch out for. And then when it does come to the other two, she comes with a pretty cool looking blaster right there, and she does come with a holster for that. And she comes with a knife, and I do remember that in the show they do have her and the Mandalorian fight for a second, and they both pull out a knife on each other. So she does have somewhere where she sheaths it in the show, but the figure itself doesn't come, as far as I can tell, with anywhere to sheath it, so it has to be held either in her hand or off to the side, which kind of sucks. And if we ever get an updated version, I hope that they give her some kind of holster or somewhere to put it. But if you guys do know where it's supposed to go, let me know in the comments, because I didn't quite understand if it was supposed to go anywhere else. So when it comes to articulation, Cara Dune is just as good as most of the Black Series characters that we get. And while she is a fairly large female character, she is slightly slimmer, I guess you could say, than some of the other characters. So she actually does get a good variety of articulation. So let me go ahead and break it down for you. So I'm actually just noticing it right now before you do articulation for the head, but she does have a braid in her hair. So her hair came out pretty dope, and it does look a lot like the way she does in the show, but I didn't even realize they also gave her the braid, which is dope as hell. I love braided hair, so that's a pretty nice touch to add in there while giving her just a lot of depth to her overall head and head sculpt. So that's pretty cool. So this is her neutral head pose. This is her just looking straight forward, and the head can go back about this far. Now her hair does hit the back of her collar, so that's only about as far as you're going to be able to get. I don't know if you guys can tell, but she is looking slightly up, so there is that. And then she can look down about that far. So again, she does look down a little less and a little up, but you don't get too much. But you do get a full 360 on the head. Now the hair is sculpted in a way that it just does not get in the way, so they can do the full 360. So pretty good job on not hindering articulation with the hair for the Black Series team. Now the armor itself is a hard piece around the shoulders, so this wasn't kind of like some of the new stuff where it's connected directly to the shoulder rather than being connected to the torso like it is here. So it is going to hinder a little bit of articulation, but you do get to the T-pose about this far, which is pretty damn solid. It's a bit of a softer plastic, but you don't really need to push too far into it. It doesn't really give too much, but you do get a full T-pose. You're not going to need really more than this unless you're trying to put her in like a falling pose, but at that point you're basically moving the arms in a different direction. But as much as you're going to mostly need, this is it right here. Now, obviously, you would be able to do the full shoulder 360 if the armor wasn't in the way, but you do get it up about this far. So you do get it up past 90 degrees, and it does go back basically the same amount backwards. So again, as much articulation as you'll ever need. Now, it doesn't have upper bicep swivel, and it's only a single joint at the elbow, but it does hinge and swivel, so you do get way past 90 degrees. This is definitely good. You're not going to need really more than this, especially considered she's armored, right, in her gauntlets. So this is definitely a good amount. And then it does swivel basically 90 degrees all the way out, but you could do a full 360, not saying you will, but just it's there. So you do get all the articulation to be able to put her into the poses that you want to put her in. Now we do have good articulation around the waist too. So basically this is how she is in a normal T-pose. I'm going to move this out of the way so you can see the abdomen. So you do have her right here, and then that's about as far forward as you can get, which does look obviously like she's leaning forward, so that's good. And then it will go back far enough to make it look like she's definitely arcing her back a little bit. So that is fairly good considering she's a fully armored character. Now, when it comes to the legs, she should be able to do a full splits. So actually, that's about as far as she goes, and the holster on the right doesn't stop her one bit. This actually gets stopped just by the thickness of, I guess, the upper thighs going into the pelvic piece. So that's about as far as it goes, but you're probably not going to need any more than this at any moment. Okay, so for the rest of the legs, it is pretty simple. So basically, we do have a swivel at the top that goes full 360. I'm not going to do it because my joints are fairly tight, smooth but tight. And then below that, we do get double jointed knees, so they do go back. She can basically kick her own ass. That is phenomenal. And it's going to be the same thing on the other side. The only difference is we are going to have a swivel for both. And she can go literally all the way to the ground. So there is no denying that they obviously captured Gina Carano's likeness incredibly well with this figure. We get some fairly tight joints, a lot of smooth moving joints overall, good articulation, great weapon choices. She looks dope as hell. This is definitely one of those badasses from the Rebel side that we never really got to see per se, and now we're getting it here in this female commando trooper, and I think it's just a dope character. Overall, I think that this is a good representation of the figure overall. Now, when it comes to buying this figure, if you're thinking about maybe the fact that they might put out a second one at some point, I really don't think we're going to get it. And even if we do, I doubt that they're going to invest the money to change anything. So it'll most likely really just end up being a repack of this one, even if by chance we do get an updated box. So when it comes down to it, if you guys do see this one, I think it's a must buy. And I felt that way before this whole Gina Carano situation, just because I'm a big fan of Cara Dune's character and what they portrayed for us. And I think that this figure embodies a lot of that. Now, the question is this figure worth $200? No, I don't think this is a $200 figure, no matter how rare it ever gets. There definitely are plenty of them out there, and I think that if you do have to pay a premium, I think the most I would pay for this is about as much as an SH Figure Arts version might have, which sadly we're probably never going to get. So, but this is a fairly good consolation price, even if you can get those. So while $200 to me is a little too high, around $60-ish, especially to have something that we're most likely never going to get a second run of. And if it ever do, it'll be our kids that end up getting that, not us. Unless something changes in the next couple days, we're probably just not going to get it. Seeing as Hasbro has canceled all of Cara Dune's likeness. So again, if you are going to pay a premium, consider, the rarity of this figure and just how much of a good figure this is. Overall, they spent money on this and it came out good. I think this is one of the most solid figures that we've gotten where, it's not covered by a helmet or anything. Like, they had to show us this figure, and for the most part, it's a great action figure and a great sculpt, good paint. They put the money where it needed to go, and I'm glad that they did. But before we end this, let me go ahead and give you a size comparison amongst everything that we have from The Mandalorian and a few other licenses. All right, for starters on the left, we're going to put up. All right, so after a little bit of critical feedback that I did receive from people in the comment section, which, by the way, I appreciate it. I always appreciate that, and some of my viewers give me some feedback on what I can do to change this. And one of them did mention, actually a couple of you guys did mention that you guys wanted me to get a bigger plane of view so that I can actually put them directly next to each other. And I hope you guys can see right here, they are directly next to each other. And Mace Windu is obviously a bigger character, by the way. Yep, that's a Mace Windu on the side. But you know what? This looks fairly in scale. I do believe Samuel Jackson in real life probably does have about this much size on her, but I did hear somewhere that this specific figure is a little on the larger side, but it still looks pretty good. I could definitely see this in a diorama. All right, and then next we're going to add in the Revoltech cable, which, as you can tell, is wildly I don't want to say out of scale. I mean, I guess this could be a real thing. Let me just zoom out a little bit. Yeah, he is pretty big. So for the most part, large character. Still looks nice though. I don't mind it at all. Let me go ahead and adjust that. For the most part, this is how she would size, again, somebody like Mace Windu, and then somebody from Revoltech. But this is one of the bigger guys, so maybe some of the smaller female characters would line up a bit more with Cara Dune. Next, we're going to have some of her Mandalorian allies. We are going to have Grief Karga, Carl Weathers on the left, and the likeness is fairly there. That's why I'm saying that I'm not sure if I'm necessarily convinced that you should even wait for them to do a re-release with the printed faces, because Carl Weathers does look like Carl Weathers, but something's weird there. But as you can tell, sizing is pretty spot on. This is basically what they do look like in the show, and it does look very great next to each other. And then next to her, now we have the armorer, and as you can tell, they are about the same height, but Cara Dune's character overall definitely has a bigger buck to her. She definitely has slightly wider shoulders. Her arms look to be about the same size, maybe a little buffer, and then the legs themselves seem to be a little thicker all the way down. But this is a good comparison, and again, this is about how they look in the show when we are watching it. All right, and for one of her biggest enemies, we have Moff Gideon on the left, and he is supposed to be a little bit of a shorter, smaller character, and I am willing to say that this lines up pretty perfectly. They both look super dope next to each other, and again, in a diorama, it's going to look fantastic. But yeah, the height difference, I think I'm pretty sure if I were to Google it, it's basically this right here. Now on the right, I do have the Mandalorian, but this is Din Djarin from the SH Figure Arts line. Now I do have a Black Series version, but he's tucked away somewhere and I couldn't find him in time. But more or less, they are about this height, so this is probably about how it's going to look. And as you can tell, even though this is a much more expensive figure on the right, both Cara Dune and even the Moff Gideon do hold up pretty well. And I will show you guys the Darksaber with Din Djarin, but not in this review. You guys are going to have to wait for my Moff Gideon review. And for just the sake of comparison, we are going to have Zartan on the left, and as you can tell, pretty big guy. You can't even see the top of his hood. Maybe I can zoom out just the slightest bit. No, it's kind of messed up, but as you can tell, fairly large character. So this still scales fairly well, but obviously Zartan is a bit bigger, but it is from Hasbro's 6-inch line, so all these can scale pretty well. So this one's a bit more on point. All right, and then on the right, we are going to have the Mafix Infinity War Thor, and as you can tell, he's also noticeably bigger, but again, I think he'll scale fairly well compared to some of the other figures, but both of these are not exactly 6-inch. They're not 7-inch, but maybe they're on the 6.5-inch scale, because Grief Karga's character, Carl Weathers, is supposed to be a fairly tall character, and Din Djarin's also not a small guy himself, but they both seem to be the slightest bit shorter than both of these guys, but still, good to see variety and more or less how these characters stack up against each other. Alright guys, so as I mentioned earlier, this is a dope ass figure. I think it's something that you should add to your collection, especially if you're a fan of The Mandalorian. This is a centerpiece. Din Djarin is probably my favorite character, and the runner-up is most definitely Cara Dune. So this for me was a must-buy, and I'm glad I did get it before this, fiasco with Disney and them letting go of Cara Dune and, Gina Carano and where that's all going. But, again, here we're not going to necessarily get into politics. That'll be for another feature. But at the end of the day, if you liked the character, if you can disassociate yourself from maybe Gina Carano, but more on your feelings of how cool the character Cara Dune is, this is a must buy. I think that this is something you guys should definitely try to get if you can, and if you do have to pay a premium, I think it's worth it. How much is worth it? Again, I don't even think anyone should be spending more than maybe about $60. $200 seems kind of crazy, but if you gotta like that, then you gotta like that. But for the most part, definitely this should be in your Star Wars collection. All right, guys, so if you guys did enjoy that, go ahead and give me a like, comment, or subscribe. Let me know if you have any feedback for me, what I can do to cater this more towards your liking or what you guys want to see in future reviews. I do hope I fixed a couple of things, but again, any feedback is always enjoyable. And then I do want to get some feedback on this whole Cara Dune, Gina Carano situation. Is that something you would want to see me talk about? Is that something you'd want to see me break down more of or to share with you guys? I would love to hear your opinion. Leave me what you feel in the comments. I don't care if you agree with Gina Carano or not, but getting more information from you guys and what the community feels is always really dope. So as per usual, I am going to be bringing out more of this stuff. As you can tell, there's a lot of stuff I haven't reviewed yet, but I'll get to it eventually. All right, you guys. So again, if you want to see more of that, go ahead and follow the channel. And then as per usual, this is a TBG feature, and I am your host, Nello, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Deuces.